right, what's going on? This is Slightly Educational Podcast, and this is a special episode, as it is our Season 1 finale. Thank all of you guys that have watched every episode. It means a lot to us, even though the amount of viewers we get are not very big.
64 total views.
64 total views. Could be a lot lower, you
Yeah,
know? And Season 2, hopefully we can get the view count up. For today's episode, we thought we'd revisit an old topic. The first episode, actually, where we talked about, the future of the U.S. government and the upcoming presidential debate. And Gabe and I were actually just talking about the Democratic candidates that were running, because that's a little more exciting than just, Trump's going to be running as the incumbent Republican candidate. So we thought we'd list off all the Democratic candidates running and then talk about each one, the chance they have and how we think they're going to go. So the first candidate we have is, or do you want to go in order of the...
Yeah, let's go in order. So when we first talked about this, the top two candidates weren't even running yet. We talked about this back in January.
Yeah.
So right now, the top of the list is Joe Biden, and he's at 26% in the polls.
Yeah. Even after the whole incident.
Did you see what Trump tweeted?
No.
His tweet. It's it was a edited video of his apology. You see or a quote unquote apology. And it was edited with him putting his shoulders over the guy or over himself, basically. So it's a video of him with his shoulders on himself. It's pretty funny. And he didn't make it obviously, but he posted on his own Twitter account. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think it is a legitimate issue, the fact that Biden. I mean, we've known there have been videos about this since he was vice president, but it's definitely a concern. The fact that he was so reluctant to he issued a statement, but it wasn't really an apology. It was oh, I'm just from a different time and that I didn't realize stuff like that. So I don't know. What do you think about it?
I don't think he had bad intentions.
No,
I don't think he's obviously I don't think he's a sexual predator.
No.
But I think that kind of behavior is outdated. I can kind of relate. There are a lot of older men in general that are more touchy feely, and the kind of guys that'll just come up to you and start patting you on the back and grabbing your shoulders. Obviously, I think that's kind of uncalled for when you're in such a powerful position.
Definitely,
you can't really go around grabbing people, but I don't think it really should hurt his.
It hasn't. And he's still the top runner, and that's probably just because he's riding off the wave of name recognition and people wanting to go back to the Obama days or whatever. So I mean, Biden's doing all right, but he's especially recently, he hasn't been in the news as much. Besides, obviously, the whole scandal with him. Because there's just been other people running. So another person running, Bernie Sanders, who we did bring it up at one episode, but he's running now. And part of the concern about him is how old he was, and we talked about this in the other episode. And I don't really see it, like I said, I still don't really see it as much of an issue. I mean, he voted a candidate based on his policies, not his age, and he's still qualified to run.
Yeah, and I think this is because he's ran several times in the past. No,
he ran once.
He ran once in the past. Did he not run any elections before that?
I don't think so.
Oh, but
not presidential elections.
Yeah, I think this is his best chance he has.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
I just think not even his policies, just kind of the stigma around his policies. Obviously, coming out and saying that you're a socialist is I don't know if it's the smartest move, just because there is a lot of negative stigma both within Democrats and Republicans. Well, obviously the Republicans in the United States, but in Democrats.
Has he said explicitly a social? Or do you
I think he says democratic socialism
or social democrat. Those are
I think democratic socialism is the term he uses, but I think Bernie Sanders has a good I could see him, perhaps beating Trump. That's basically two polar, two.
I could definitely see him being
opposite sides.
Yeah, I mean they are similar in that they're both populist, but yeah, they're definitely both opposite sides of the political spectrum. I think at least Bernie Sanders has definitely been successful at bringing up issues. The issues he brought up in 2016 are the mainline Democratic issues now, right? So you're labeled as a right-wing Democrat if you don't support healthcare for all, and all these other issues about even free college. Some candidates are espousing and breaking up the big businesses or whatever, Elizabeth Warren is talking about. So he's definitely been successful, even if he doesn't win this election or any election. He's been successful at pushing, changing the agenda and pushing the Democratic Party further left, which is a good part of his goal, I guess.
Yeah. I guess he kind of what we learned about with Ross Perot, not winning the election but bringing certain issues to attention. That definitely happened with Bernie Sanders. I feel 4 years ago, Healthcare, definitely with the Obama administration, that was a big thing. But free college and a lot of these more farther left points of view.
Like even now, like healthcare, I think healthcare is the biggest issue Democrats are gonna like. That's their key issue that they could probably win on, is running on a campaign based on like promoting Medicare for all and stuff like that. That's their issue.
Yeah, and also definitely I feel like Trump. I mean, we've obviously seen him win one election, but I feel like there's so much things that he says and does that could be like used against him.
Maybe, but like
ads,
his supporters don't really care.
And I feel like, has he dropped support among his core supporters? I don't think so.
I don't think he ever will.
Yeah, I feel like he's still kind of quite popular with his base.
I mean, at the end of the day, like most of the people who vote Republican are going to vote Republican. Most people who vote Democrat are going to vote Democrat. Just the letter next to their name. So I mean,
except in go ahead. No, go ahead. But another, speaking of that, a candidate that I really want to bring up and someone that I really support is Andrew Yang. And I've actually known people from other sides of the aisle that have made the switch and become Yang supporters, more than one. And I think Andrew Yang is the most exciting candidate because his whole following is made up of, a demographic that didn't really vote in last election, which is like millennials and young people.
Right.
I don't know if he's the most popular candidate among that demographic, but he's
I don't think he's the most popular among any demographic.
Yeah, maybe, but he is surging. And I mean, did you see he's going to be in the debates?
He broke through like 65,000 donations.
Yeah, individual donors.
That's pretty good. I mean, I don't think the point of him running is to win. And there's actually another candidate like that too. But the point of Andrew Yang running is like he wants to bring the issue to the table, and he's a single issue candidate if there ever is one, which is the universal basic income, which we talked about like 2 episodes ago.
But it was interesting because when you brought up universal basic income, I didn't really understand what you were getting at because I was like, oh, this just sounds like socialism or like communism. Everyone gets paid. But reading more into it and into the value added tax that he's talked about, I think that is the best solution for the direction that we're going as a country right now. You sold me on the.
That's funny that I sold you on it because I'm not a really huge supporter of it. I was describing it. But the problem I have with like Andrew Yang is that one, he's like a Silicon Valley guy, which means that he's already like part of like the big, not necessarily big business, but like he's a capitalist and trying to promote it and universal basic income is a way to keep the system afloat basically. And what his like proposal is that if you're already on like welfare right, that your universal basic income is cut proportionally based on it, right? So you either get like whatever the $1,000 a month or the whatever
equivalent
welfare check. And I feel like the problem is that as like UBI programs are going to be expanded, they're going to be expanded at the detriment to healthcare or like any of this welfare stuff. It could be to the point where like you don't even have like universal healthcare, you just have like a stipend and they just hope you spend it on the right stuff. And I'm not saying I want to take people's freedom away to spend their money how they want, but like a lot of people don't spend their money the right way. And it's definitely a concern for people like that.
I think that is a concern, but I think when you allocate certain amounts of money to certain issues, it can kind of cannot seem like a waste, but I think to appeal to like his idea of universal basic income, in that instead of giving you healthcare money or food stamps or whatever, we're just going to give you this certain amount of money. I think that definitely appeals to a wider range, especially you have those hardline conservatives like some of the people that I know that are not for a system that they're basically anti-welfare. That's pretty strong Republican point of view that recognize the idea behind the universal basic income and think that it's more appealing to them, which is something that I think is kind of interesting, that a policy that seems so liberal and so far to the left has been appealing.
Yeah, I feel I feel like the people are more like edge cases rather than like the trends. Because like I don't know how many Republicans would be convinced that I hate government regulations, but I guess they just like to cash government checks is what it is.
Yeah.
But I don't really know how well that'll work. And also the problem is with universal basic income is that it takes the leverage that people have against like large corporations, the fact that they work for them. So like whatever their labor is, and it just takes it completely out of their hands. So basically, big corporations have all the power, and it's the government that's giving the money. and the people who work and the consumers are left with no leverage at all in this relationship. So I think it's a pretty dangerous path to go on.
You're a Bernie Sanders candidate, right?
Yeah.
Taking away universal basic income, do you think there is a better kind of solution to the problem of automation rather than universal basic income?
Yeah, as opposed to universal basic income, it's definitely a hard problem, and it's I don't think it's like things we faced before. But I don't know. I think the system is inherently built off of continuing profits, right? And continuing this like culture of consumerism, and I don't think that it'll definitely pose a problem to the way the U.S. government works, or the American system works with automation and a lot of people going out of business. So I guess universal basic income could be a short-term solution, if you want to call it a solution, but I don't really know.
Especially because the amount of money proposed isn't going to make up for, because when automation is coming in and taking people's manufacturing jobs, there are like losing their job, their sole source of income, and giving them $1,000 a month isn't gonna necessarily make up for that lost amount of money.
I think the idea is it's supposed to be like a supplement to your thing, right? So you can take a job that takes less time, basically work like 30 hours a week. You have the $12,000 to fall back on, and you can like gain more skills. Like you can take a coding class or whatever, and work towards a better job.
Code,
yeah.
Yeah. So. Any other candidates that you want to?
I mean, going down the list, it's just a bunch of the same.
Buttigieg. He's the other one. He's surging in popularity.
He is. He's like the new. Actually, let's go back before we talk about Buttigieg. Let's talk about Beto, because Beto wasn't running when we were talking about it originally. But you liked him back then.
I like Beto. I think obviously Andrew Yang's platform is so unique, and there's no other candidate really running on the same platform that he is. That's what really has like captured my attention. I like Beto. I don't know too much about his politics. I'm assuming they're pretty standard Democratic.
And you don't even have to know about his politics. All that he cares about is that he has charisma and a handsome man.
Yeah.
Rolls up his sleeve, stands on tables.
Yeah. That is going to play in his advantage, especially because you look at some of the other candidates, definitely not as charismatic. Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders. I don't know if you want to call Bernie Sanders charismatic, but his energy definitely
He's a following.
and he has a strong following. And his following has only really been growing since last election. I think Elizabeth Warren, another candidate that we haven't mentioned yet, not the most charismatic lady. She kind of falls under the same like problem that Hillary Clinton fell under, and is that they're kind of just like cardboard. And
maybe. I mean, she is
establishment.
I wouldn't call Elizabeth Warren establishment.
I'd call her more establishment than candidates like Bernie Sanders or Andrew Yang.
Yeah, but that's you literally picked like the furthest extreme candidates on the Democratic platform. I think when she was running before Bernie was running, I think she was the furthest left candidate. I mean, she even called for like the breakup of like Google and Amazon a while back, right? That's not establishment. I just think she's not a really good campaigner like Hillary Clinton was, and she's just not charismatic, and she doesn't. I don't know. People just don't really like her as much, and the fact that Bernie's running, it pulls support away from her anyway.
But going back to Beto O'Rourke, I think he's exciting because he has a pretty strong following, especially in Texas, which is
I don't even really understand because he lost.
I know.
Like, I think this whole run is like, it's for like vanity. It's so he can get a vice president. I think it's for a vice presidential spot.
Really, I think he'd be a good vice presidential candidate. Because he appeals to that. I think like the more Latino crowd.
Oh yeah,
I think
Roberto.
Roberto. I think he'd be a smart vice presidential pick, and he has a lot of clout, as you'd say, in the kind of Democratic community.
Yeah, I mean, let me see where he's at in the polls right now.
I think he's like 4th or 5th. I think he's kind of stagnated.
He's below Buttigieg.
He's below Buttigieg?
Yeah, he's like 5th or 6th or something. But anyway, so Pete Buttigieg.
He's exciting. He came out of nowhere. Mayor of South Bend.
South Bend, gay Christian mayor of South Bend.
I know, especially because South Bend, Indiana, I've never been there. I've only seen pictures, read things about it. It's where Notre Dame University is, obviously a good school, but it's not the best town.
No,
it's an example.
It's in Indiana.
It's an example of one of those like Midwestern towns that you have kind of been left behind. I don't know what work Pete Buttigieg has done in South Bend, Indiana.
Oh, he was a mayor.
I know he was mayor. Is it like thriving now? Did he bring it back from the dead, or?
I mean, people liked him. I think his appeal is that he stood up to Trump on a lot of stuff, and Mike Pence too, especially on like the gay conversion therapy stuff and just gay rights in general. So that's why people like him. He's a charismatic guy. just like Beto, and he's recently like a ton. He's been in the news a lot, and he just started running like a week ago, and he's already, like we said, already passed Beto. He's like 7% in the polls, so he's going really fast.
Do you think that him being gay, because obviously that's going to play an integral role in his campaign? You know, he's not like that. That's something that sets him apart from all the other candidates. Do you think that him being gay is going to, you know, help him with his run? You know, he'll appeal more to the get the gay vote, and the gay vote, and you know, appeal more to the people that are concerned most with LGBTQ issues and their sympathizers? Or do you think it will hurt him overall in the run, because there still is this kind of negative charisma, or not charisma, I don't know what I'm saying, negative stigma around gay people? And
yeah, I don't think it'll matter in the primary. It shouldn't matter in the Democratic primary.
It shouldn't matter at all. But.
I mean, yeah, it shouldn't matter at all. And I also don't know how like much of a voting block gay people have. Like, I don't. It's like for black people, like Obama, like definitely had like a huge African American support, and because black people tend to vote in like a voting block. I don't think it's as strong for gay people because there are a lot of gay Republicans,
log cabin Republicans.
Yeah, so I don't know much. It'll definitely play into it. I don't think no one's gonna bring it up as a negative. You'd be hard pressed to find someone who's willing like oh
yeah.
They could. I mean, I don't know, because like Hillary Clinton tried to do something similar like in 2008. Obviously, she's not racist, and but like running against. She was saying it as if it was going to be harder for Barack Obama to win because of him being black, which is why she was saying that she should be the nominee in 2008. So people could do that. I can't see anyone doing that, and honestly, I don't. Pete Buttigieg being gay is like, I guess it's kind of big. It's bigger because he can use it as a device to criticize the administration. So like he can criticize Mike Pence and whatever his policies are.
There's a lot of things he can criticize.
Which is why people like him, because he's taking a strong stance. But other than that, like other than his strong anti-Trump stance, I don't think he doesn't really have many like stern policies. Like for Medicare for All, for example, he says that like the private insurance companies can stay, at least for the meanwhile, while they try to roll out Medicare for All, which is very moderate policy on among Democratic candidates. So his whole thing is just like being a moderate kind of, but being like charismatic. Yeah,
I feel like that could work. There are a lot of moderate Democrats that exist. I feel like they're kind of a forgotten demographic because a lot of the Democratic Party is obviously going farther to the left. We talked about that earlier with, you know, the key policies being Medicare for All and free college. But I think it is harder in this political climate for a moderate Democrat with more moderate views to get elected.
I mean, Biden's still the front runner.
Yeah. Would you want to call Biden a moderate, though?
Yes, I'd call Biden moderate. Would you not call Biden moderate?
I don't know. Maybe now, like, adjusted to how far
I think
left.
he's been a moderate since he ran in, like, 2008.
Really? I don't know. I don't know too much about Joe Biden, but I think that based on the stuff that they did in the Obama administration, that was pretty...
What did they do? They did...
Like, the stuff they were working on, you know, the healthcare and the policies.
They tried, but they also continued... They continued bombing Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Still committed troops. I mean, like, I think Obama's a moderate too. So people just like, again, another moderate with a lot of charisma, which is why people like Obama.
Yeah, but Buttigieg, that'd be interesting to see him going up against Trump. That'd be interesting. I think he'd have a good shot. I think honestly, any candidate would have a good
Literally
shot.
Anybody would have a good shot against Trump.
I think that's probably why there's so many Democrats running.
Yeah, it's like more they can count.
Shot. Yeah. So, and then,
I mean, the third place person right now is Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris? Do you want to talk about her? She's
also another moderate Democrat. Moderate. So, I mean, she was the Attorney General, I think, in California. And a lot of the issue Democrats have with her is that she was strict on like drug enforcement, which is another thing we talked about on the podcast.
Yeah.
So she was like locking people up in California, really strict. I mean, people call her cop. She wasn't actually a cop, but like people call her a cop. There's one thing where they asked if she ever smoked weed in college, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I smoked weed listening to like Snoop Dogg and all those guys." And like, it's funny because she had graduated college before Snoop Dogg even released his first album. So she's clearly just making stuff up to try to appeal to younger demographic, but I don't really know.
I feel like if you're a Democrat, though, you kind of have to take that legalization of marijuana stance because it's so popular among the party.
Yeah, there's a lot of things.
It's becoming kind of a core core value.
Even stuff like abortion, right? Pete Buttigieg is like pro-choice. I don't know if he was ever like anti-abortion, but he's being like a Christian. I would assume he was at least holds different personal views.
But when you're saying Buttigieg as a Christian, is
he touts that he's like I'm a gay Christian male. So like it's not like I'm just saying he happens to be a Christian. He's like he uses that like as one of his things.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that'll appeal to a wide range of Democrats. I'm not personally a big fan of Kamala Harris. I've seen her do like some speaking in that. I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan, but I know there's a lot of passionate Kamala Harris supporters.
Which is weird, like I don't know.
It's kind of an odd,
extreme moderate or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's weird, and people like her because she's also like if she became president, that'd be huge, like for a black woman.
Yeah, so that'd be huge. And then Cory Booker. He's another candidate. I don't think he's gonna really go anywhere.
He hasn't gone anywhere. He announced a while back.
He had a lot of promise. He announced a while back. He was one of the, if you're talking about like back in 2016, 2017, around that time, people were talking about potential candidates for the next election.
Yeah, he's 2% right now in the polls. Just barely beating Yang. He's at 1%.
But Yang is surging. Yang's coming up, and I think Yang could make some noise in the debates.
He could. That's assuming also the DNC doesn't change anything up. Like, they could definitely change their rules.
Yeah.
So, and the DNC is not averse to helping the candidate they want to win, as you saw 4 years ago. 4 years ago.
Yeah, so now that we've gone over all the candidates, what candidate do you think, if you had to give a prediction right now, which candidate would you say is going to come out of the Democratic
is going to win?
It's really early.
It is. It's really early, and it's really far away. And I don't really know who's going to win. I think the people with the best chances are Biden, Bernie, and Buttigieg. Yeah, BB. Yeah. But I don't really know who's going to win out of the three.
I think I just cannot see Bernie Sanders.
Really? You can't see him winning?
I can see him beating Trump in an election, but I think
the Democratic primary.
For Democratic primary, I just don't know if he will be able to garner enough support. Because all the people that didn't support him last election, I don't think a lot of them are going to be going to support him this election. And obviously the no moderate Democrat is going to be supporting Bernie Sanders.
Could be, but also it's not moderate Democrats who typically vote in primaries.
Yeah. It's
a primary election, right? So you have to get people out to vote. And the people who vote are going to be more passionate Democrats. And as we've talked about, the Democratic Party has shifted over their platform.
But I think it's going to be a key time for Democrats because what are they? They took control of the House of Representatives, right?
Yeah.
And the Senate is not far out of view for the Democrats. So if the stars align, we could be seeing a Democratic control.
Could be. Part of the primary is really just electing who they think they could beat Trump. Because honestly, I'll take any of these guys over Trump. But it's not a hard choice.
Oh no, I'd take what's the guy with the shoe on his head?
Vermin Supreme.
I'd take Vermin Supreme over Trump. Do you know if he's announced his candidacy yet?
He doesn't run for Democrat. He's a libertarian, I think.
Libertarian?
Yeah, he's always joking. Even if he won the nomination, he'd drop out because he's not a candidate.
Yeah,
do that.
He's not serious. He's a good throwaway candidate like Harambe or D's Nuts.
I mean, he's trying to bring light to some issues. But he's like a satirical candidate.
Yeah, but okay. So now that we've talked about the candidates, going back to our main topic for the first episode is the future of the American government. With recent, developments and getting more of a chance to see the platforms and the proposed platforms of the potential candidates and obviously the potential president in 2020. Do you, how do you see like the future of the American government playing out, especially in the next 10 to 20 years? More of our lifetime.
Yeah, I think especially if you like you said the Democrats can take control of the government, that there might be some changes in how it works. There's a huge issue like the Electoral College and how that disproportionately helps smaller states, or even the Senate, the Senate disproportionately helping smaller states. There's talk about abolishing the filibuster or something, right? So preventing the need to have a supermajority if you ever want to get anything done. So I mean, I think that there could be some bigger systemic changes depending on how the election turns out.
I think because we obviously saw with the Obama administration, even though you and I are kind of quite young and not really as politically conscious as we are now, their failure to implement a system of universal health care.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see the political climate now? Obviously, if there's a Democratic-controlled House, Democratic-controlled Senate, it would be easier for them to pass a universal health care bill. But can you see like a future candidate running into the same struggles that Obama ran into?
Yeah, I mean,
trying to pass universal health care bill, because that is like the number one front issue for Democratic candidates, at least right now.
And it has large support too, and I think it'll definitely be a lot easier now than it would have been in 2008 because it's more popular.
It's a less radical idea, yeah.
But it could always get struck down too. Keep in mind that Republicans still control the Supreme Court, and that's another issue, right? Democrats have been proposing like just if they win, packing the courts. So like what FDR tried to do, and just keep on put more Supreme Court justices just to try to win the court back. So like stuff like universal basic income, like there was like a Texas judge who tried to strike down Obamacare. So it could definitely be stopped in some places. But I think it'll be easier to pass obviously now because more people support it.
But I think if Bernie Sanders gets elected, which as I just said like 5 minutes ago, I can't see him winning the primary. I think if he gets elected, and being such a liberal, like a far left liberal candidate as he is, I think that will be a groundbreaking moment for Democrats, and it would kind of shift, because his end goal obviously is to shift the U.S. political system from the kind of capitalistic system that we live in right now to democratic socialist system.
Favorite countries like Denmark and Sweden,
which obviously we can't. There are some aspects of these countries that obviously I don't think would fly. Like in Denmark, or fly in the United States. In Denmark, they have a 65% income tax, which is what AOC was.
That was a marginal. I mean, that was like for people over $10 million.
That's for people over $10 million?
I think we talked about this exact thing in the first episode. Yeah, you only get taxed 7% for any income over $10 million. So anything below that is less. That's how tax brackets work.
Yeah.
But yeah, you'd be hard pressed to like find many. It's just part of the culture, right? Americans like having their individual freedom, so they probably wouldn't be down with huge tax increases.
And I think that it's a funny idea. You know how we've seen this kind of rise in protests ever since Trump got elected?
Yeah, like every week, yeah.
Yeah, every week there's some march on Washington. Some rally that everyone's going to. Do you think? Let's say. So this is a kind of fantasy scenario, if you will. Bernie Sanders becomes president, Democratic-controlled House and Senate.
All right, and they do a new march on.
Do you think we'd see like a Republican march on Washington?
The white male march on Washington or something?
The white male march, conservative march.
I think part of why it's easy to have marches in like these large cities is because the people who live in large cities are Democrats, right? So like DC has literally never voted for a Republican for any like district-wide office, or not like any major like mayor or like president or anything like that. And same with like New York or LA and any of these places where they had huge marches. So one, to have a huge rally of like right-wing people would require people to come in, kind of like what they did in Charlottesville, where everyone comes in and protests somewhere. I don't know. It's hard. That's a hard question. I mean, there were definitely people like back in Obama's time when like the Tea Party, right? Tax enough already. They organized. I don't think it'll be as big as the outcry for Trump, because the reason why it was big because like majority of Americans didn't vote for Trump, so there's already a large amount of people who were willing to protest that. Yeah, but I don't know.
For sure, and I think that we are already so divided politically today. With obviously. We don't need to explain anything to the people listening. They can see it themselves. The Democrats going more to the left. Excuse me. Republicans going farther to the right. I think that a moderate candidate like Biden or Buttigieg, would you consider Buttigieg?
Yeah.
A more moderate candidate would kind of help, I think, bring the two sides kind of closer together. I think that's...
I hear what you're saying, and... I understand why you'd want to like elect a moderate, but I don't think electing moderate is a good idea. It's like you're basically conceding, especially if it's stuff like Medicare for all. People are dying right now, right? So conceding something like, oh, we'll get this further down the line, is just like pushing a problem. Like people are dying, right? So you're pushing a problem further down the line and letting it just for the sake of like moderation and for the sake of unity or whatever. It's like, and this like appeal like this desire to keep the status quo is partially like a privilege of like people who are just in a good position, right? You can keep the status quo because you're doing fine, right? But there are a lot of people who aren't doing fine, and keeping the status quo is just a detriment to them. So I don't know. I don't really like this like whole like the centrism is like the best path in that. It's like,
well, I'm not saying centrism's our best path, but I'm saying having the country basically like a middle school dance with boys on one side and girls on the other side, with Democrats on one side, Republicans on the other side, is not like is an even worse future for us.
But the thing is, like, Republicans are a lot less willing. I don't want to say it, but like at least the Republicans in the Senate. So I don't mean to say like Republican voters, but like Republicans in the Senate, like Mitch McConnell and all those guys, aren't as willing to compromise with like Democrats as like the Democrats are. I'd say, because like with like Nancy Pelosi, like with the Green New Deal, she's like, oh, we can't afford that right now, stuff like that. So I mean, like, if the Republicans keep going for the right and the Democrats keep meeting them halfway, then both parties get pulled further right. So I don't really know how well that's going to work.
Yeah. I think another fun topic that I wanted to bring up was going back to the split between the Republicans and Democrats. You know, obviously we've seen the Democrats go to more to the left, Republicans going more to the right. Do you think this is a very far-fetched idea, and we may have touched on it in our last episode, with a civil war, potentially?
A second civil war?
A second civil war? Could you see that? I cannot see that happening in the next, like...
There was a senator who published something, like a picture, like who would win the next civil war. It's like a Republican senator from like Iowa or something, and it was basically about guns, because like the Republican states have more guns and stuff like that. But anyway, what was your question again?
Just like down the line, could you see that happening? I don't know if I could see necessarily a physical like war, but I could see some temptation for a group to break away, like we saw with California after there was that whole movement to
something like Calexit or something,
independent California.
Yeah, those movements always they're like hyped up. They get like 1% in the polls or whatever. Like, I don't think it's as big a deal as people make it out to be. And no, there's not going to be another civil war. We're not like in the Spanish Republic, and it's not going to like in the 1930s or like Weimar Germany. It's not going to devolve into some like huge thing. People like to say how partisan the U.S. is, but like both parties are really not that extreme, not as extreme as some other parties in other countries.
Yeah, for sure. But then again, in most other countries, there isn't just a two-party system.
Yeah, which is part
like
of it.
20 parties.
But the two-party system makes it a benefit to stay moderate, because if you run to the extremes, you're a spoiler vote basically, and you pull away votes from moderates. So the first past the post system, as bad as it may be, it pulls people into the center and makes it so people have to compromise.
Yeah, for sure. And I think with the two-party system, it's I'd not say guarantees more voter turnout, but because there's only two parties and such a like smaller number of candidates for each election, then the voters are going to be more familiar with the candidates.
I think it's the opposite. I think it makes them less likely to vote, because people feel like their issues aren't being met. So people are more like apathetic to coming out, because like U.S. is like 60% voter turnout. Yeah. All these other countries, multi-party systems, have a lot higher voter turnout, and especially for stuff like the presidential election, right? If you're a Republican in California, or if you're a Democrat in like Alabama,
it's pointless to even vote.
Exactly, because there's nothing you can do with the first past the post system, right? Because you're going to lose. Majority wins. So like if you're in a clear minority, there's no point in voting. So I don't think the first past the post system helps people want to come out to the polls.
Are you in favor of abolishing the Electoral College and making it just a popular vote? So then if you're a Republican in California or a Democrat in Texas, then your vote is going to count more than it does.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of a throwaway. You don't really need to vote.
Yeah, I definitely support like some national popular vote thing. I think the Electoral College is like a vestige of like the old time where like the states were more evenly populated, and that it was more important to do stuff like that.
I think there is this odd desire in America, especially for a bunch of hardline constitutional candidates, to try and like stick, because obviously the Constitution was written eons ago. It was written 250 years ago, and so there's this odd desire to kind of hold on to the past in that regard, which I think is something that Republicans hold more than Democrats. You see a lot more like constitutional hardline Republicans rather than Democrats.
Right, because it benefits them.
It benefits them, which is something I think is kind of unique to America. Obviously, I've never been to another country, let alone been
political participation.
Participated in their political system. But I think that's something unique to the U.S., which is
well, I think it's the oldest constitution, at least
oldest,
modern one. I mean, unless you count like the Magna Carta or something.
Or like San Marino.
Did they have like a constitution?
I don't know, but that's the oldest.
Or at least democratic constitution.
Yeah, that's the oldest independent state in the country.
But yeah, I understand what you're saying. People act like the founding fathers were like infallible or whatever. But the whole point, matter of fact, they set up the Constitution and the way to be able to be amended. Like they knew that they were going to be wrong sometimes, so they put a system in place so that you can change it. So I think it should be changed. And there's actually an interesting podcast about. It's called America from Scratch. I would recommend people listen to it. It's about what would you change if you like could change the Constitution or could like rewrite the Constitution basically.
What would you rewrite? I'd change. There's a few things I'd change. I don't know if I'd change the Second Amendment, but I'd definitely amend it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I don't have a huge deal. Like, I don't think a full ban on guns is going to happen anytime in the U.S.
I'm no supporter of full ban on guns, because I think the point of the Second Amendment is not just to have guns. It's not so people can hoard AK-47s in their basement, you know? It's the right to...
It's a well-regulated militia.
Yeah, to have a militia in face of a government, which I think is important.
You'd get stomped by the government there, you know?
Yeah, you'd get smashed. You'd have to be one hell of a militia. But, that's probably... I get the idea, but, like... I'm definitely, like, more stronger about background checks. And I don't... Did you hear about that? What was that? It was, like, the Safety Women's Act or something?
No, I
where,
didn't.
like, if you're charged... If you have, like, a stalking charge or, like, a domestic abuse charge, there was a law in place that was preventing... It was either proposed or it was a law that was already in place preventing those people from buying a gun, and it just got repealed.
Wait, say it again? So if you were...
Like... charged with stalking a woman.
Oh, if you charge with stalking a woman,
beating a woman, like you had that. You were a felon. You had that on your record. You were not able to buy a gun, and it just got repealed. So, because they don't want to restrict access to stalkers, you know.
Yeah,
they have as much of a right as anybody to buy a gun. But I'm definitely more of a supporter of universal background checks and more stronger background checks.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, you saw like after the Christchurch shooting in New Zealand, they like did a huge like pullback on what types of weapons you can buy, and they did similar things in Australia. And it might take like, I think gun violence has stayed relatively constant, but it's been in the news a lot more, especially with these like mass shootings in schools.
The amount of mass shootings has increased.
Maybe, and it's definitely a problem. I mean, like, but people, I guess an argument that's always brought up is like, oh well, cars kill a lot of people too. Why don't we ban cars or something like that? Well, cars do kill a lot of people, but not denying that. But there's also something inherently different about violence with guns. Like Sandy Hook, parents of Sandy Hook kids are like still killing themselves today, right? So it's definitely a serious issue. And also access to guns makes suicide itself a lot easier to do. And
it's easier to shoot yourself in the head than tie a noose.
It is, and they saw this like in Australia when they banned most of the guns, that the suicide rate or successful suicide rate dropped, even if like the people wanting to commit suicide stays the same. So I mean, it's an issue. Like I said, I wouldn't repeal the Second Amendment if I was president, because like, I mean, if I could rewrite the Constitution, because like, I don't know, I don't think I would do it, just because it wouldn't fly in the U.S. either way anyway.
I'd repeal the what's the one about soldiers living in the West? The third
the Quartering Act. I mean, the Quartering Amendment. Yeah.
I just repeal that and start putting soldiers in just everyone's house. I think that's an example of like just a sign of the times. You know?
Because they don't need to. They can just listen to you on your phones or put cameras in your houses. Yeah. Courting soldiers.
They don't
nothing.
Need to live in your house, but it goes to show how much of an issue it was back in the day. If they
it was an issue.
Yeah, which I can't blame them. Some random soldier showed up to my house and was like, "Yeah, I'm about to stay here now." I'd have some problems with that.
I would, yeah,
for sure. But
let's if we're going back to the first episode, let's revisit the other topic we talked about, which was the state of college admissions. So we're both like basically through it now, right? So has anything like that you thought about changed on the state of college admissions? Like, what do you think about it?
I think definitely we've witnessed it may just be more well-educated areas and more upper-class areas that are witnessing this, but for me, did it seem like it was so much harder to get into certain colleges than anticipated?
Well, it gets harder every year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because more people are applying, and I don't know if more qualified people are applying, but more people are applying, and it's easier, which, like I said in the first episode, it's a good thing. More people should be applying to schools.
Like, there should be a higher percentage of the U.S. population should be educated. More than what is it, like 30% now, 33% now of all Americans go to college.
Yeah.
So,
not that I guess also like not everyone needs to go to college because not everyone's gonna have a job that requires a college degree. The problem is that more and more jobs are requiring college degrees, so it is becoming more important. But no, I think the drop in admissions rate, like Stanford stopped publishing it at all. I think it's like 6% or something, or maybe probably lower 5%. But it's becoming a lot harder. But at the same time, there are a lot of good schools. You don't have to go to a top 20 school.
And I think a lot of students get tunnel vision with certain schools. You know, there's like 1,200 colleges in the U.S. and most of them are colleges that you don't even have to, that aren't even competitive. You know, colleges like just random colleges that will just let you in.
Yeah.
You know, like Mercyhurst University or like a college like that, not a for-profit college, Strayer University. You know, and I think part of the reason that we see this increase in kids getting denied from colleges is that a lot of kids are applying to the same colleges.
Yeah, I mean, but that's going to happen either way. Like, but a lot of people, you're right. A lot of people are too focused on like, oh, if I don't make it into Yale or Harvard or whatever, I'm not going to be successful. But a lot of states have a great state university system. I mean, I guess it's kind of unfair because we live in Virginia, which has UVA, which is like really good. But
and
like
William and Mary and Virginia Tech.
But even if you, but like UVA is like third highest public school.
Yeah.
But even if you live in other states like Washington or Maryland or something, like those aren't state schools aren't bad schools, and they have typically a lot cheaper tuition, and you might even like end up making like the same amount of money if you want. You can be like big fish in a little pond versus just some like minnow. Yeah, so looking for.
Yeah, and I think that the perception, the notion that I have to, in order to make a good job and get a good life, I have to go to Harvard, I have to go to Yale, I have to go to UCLA, Stanford, you know, schools like that.
Right.
I think now more than ever, it really is fair game. I think. I think obviously there is bias. Obviously, you know, if you're a fourth generation Yale student, you grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut. Obviously, you know, you're not going to be poor when you're older.
Yeah.
But I think now, and it could be with globalization, it could be, you know, with the rise of the internet, and everyone can see what everyone's doing, and there's also a platform for everyone to, you know, put out their ideas, put out their work. I think now more than ever, the where you went to college is becoming more and more obsolete, and it's getting replaced with like, what have you done? What can you do?
Yeah,
what can you bring?
I mean, that's partially always it's been the case for a while at least. Like, I guess for your first job, obviously, like if you're just starting to be like a congressman staffer, going to Georgetown will help you. If you're trying to be an engineer, right? Like going to MIT will help you. But after that, like it's about your experience a lot. So I mean, it depends. It's what you do basically. But since we talked about this also, what's it called? The college admission scandal, like with USC and all those other schools, it happens. And I guess my thoughts are is like, all right, yeah, a bunch of rich people got into schools. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, I wasn't really that surprised. I was surprised that it was one Lori Loughlin, that they made it so odd in that they pretended that she was on the crew team.
That's what this whole scandal was, that they're paying off coaches like, oh, my daughter runs track or whatever because the coach got to buy a house for me or whatever it is.
I think, why are you even doing that? Like, to me, if I'm USC and this woman's like, I'll give you $500,000, let my daughter in, I'll be like, sure.
Well, it's cheaper. Cause I guess the alternative is like buying a building. Not everyone can buy a building.
Yeah.
So.
Not even their name.
But yeah, just donating to the school, you're right, does increase your chances. But I think it's easier to pay off some coach than it is to pay off the whole USC school. So I guess that's a way it's easier, but like rich people can get in college. It's easier for them to get in college.
Yeah,
anyway.
and I think what really surprised me about this scandal is it seemed like Lori Loughlin and her daughter Olivia Jade, I think is her name, right?
Probably,
went through all these hoops. And, you know, University of Southern California, USC, is a great school. It's one of the top schools in the country, obviously. But they went through all these hoops to get their daughter in. This school is like, if you're going to go
to USC,
like, why not get her into Yale or Harvard or...
Yeah, I know what you're trying to do if you're trying to act.
And she also was like, yeah, I'm just here, you know, to like party and go to football games. It's like, if you want to do that,
that's why you go to USC.
There's so many other schools.
Well, no, USC is the school for spoiled rich kids, what I heard.
Yeah, University of Spoiled Children.
For spoiled children, yeah.
That's what it's called. But she released a statement, which did not help her case at all. Where Olivia Jade was like, yeah, I'm only going to this school to, you know, go to game days and, you know, party. It's like, why even go to the school at all? Like, you can still go to the games and party if you don't go to the school.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's for the prestige, like we talked about.
Yeah. And also what I will say, though, is she was giving them this university a service back, where she was promoting them
What do you mean?
Almost for free, pretty much. I mean, obviously they're giving her college admission, but in her videos, because she had a popular following on YouTube and other social media, that she was promoting USC in those videos, you know, which is something that I think is kind of overlooked and could, like, if I'm USC and I'm saying, oh, here's this girl that not only does her family want to give me $500,000, but she has 4 million subscribers on YouTube, you know, that's a whole, and most of her subscribers probably the teenage demographic under 18 applying to colleges. You know, get the message out, like USC is such a great school to go to, USC is this and that and the other thing, you know? I think that would be reason enough for me to let someone in.
Yeah, and if that was the reason to let her in, I'm sure this wouldn't be a problem. But the problem was that they committed fraud by paying off the coaches and by lying, saying they were on a crew team or something.
Which I think is just so dumb. I think it's, like I said, there's all these other reasons.
What are you gonna write? You're gonna write in your comment app that I can make a YouTube channel for school or something.
I guess I feel what you're saying. What say you on that issue?
Like I said, I mean, like, it's in the news because it's fraud, but rich kids are going to school, kids are buying buildings, or not kids, parents are donating, buying buildings and stuff. And rich, even if you're not buying buildings or even donating to the school, like, rich people have it easier anyway. I'm not one to be talking because, like, I live in Arlington, so I'm like, I'd count as a rich person, I guess.
Yeah, we both do.
Yeah, so, but I've had an easier time, and upper class people have an easier time. I don't know, there's not really a way to change that. I don't know where the last time we talked about this too, the Harvard, what's it called, affirmative action case was still going on. I think it's still going on, and that's never gonna. I don't think it's ever gonna stop.
With the Asian people.
Yeah, Asian people, not being denied spots. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, any last comments before we wrap up this season 1 of Slightly Educational?
No, I mean, season 2 is looking good though. We're gonna have guests on season 2.
It's gonna be a little different. It's gonna be a little more excitement. You're not just gonna hear Gabe and my voice. There's gonna be a lot of other voices that you'll hear, a lot of other opinions that you hear. Especially, what I'm looking forward to is I feel like in terms of political views, we kind of are.
Yeah, we're kind of like an echo chamber. I feel like.
Yeah.
I don't mean to alienate anyone who's like not like a left-leaning person listening to this podcast, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, there's not a lot of disagreement.
Just patting each other on the back all the time. Like, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. You know, like, we think that's a good idea. So that's gonna be exciting. We're gonna have a lot of candidates with other not candidates, a lot of guests. Too much. Yeah, it's just habit now. But with other viewpoints coming into the show, and hopefully a lot of other topics. If you guys have topics that you want us to talk about, comment them below. Email us funnybusiness49@gmail.com, or if you know us personally, just tell us, hey, talk about this. Odds are we'll talk about it. I mean, the one topic request
the only topic request we've gotten was the next episode.
Yeah, the next episode after that was about that topic, and that was with automation. Shout out Forrest Hare. But yeah, thank you for sticking with us for season 1. If you made it this far in the episode, thank you for listening to what we have to say for 48 minutes.
And going back to the long form episodes.
Yeah, long form episodes. Well, this is the season 1 finale.
Of course.
We can, and it was a topic that requires a little more depth. So, any last words, Gabe?
No, it's like us on iTunes.
Yeah, and stick around for season 2. If you're there for season 1, season 2 is going to be even better. So, see you guys next time.